Why you got to come out with your guns out like that? Sun's out, guns out.
Bro, you should see these shorts that I'm wearing, man. Look at it. Hold on. They're so short. Look at that.
I like that. I like that.
They're so short.
That's a good look.
That's how I go to the gym.
You would.
Hey, ladies. No more Mr. Soft Guy. Hard as a piece of rebar.
If you're a man that controls his own destiny, a man that is always in the pursuit of being better, you are in the right place. You are responsible. You are strong. You are a leader. You are a force for good. Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.
Welcome back to the Alpha Quorum Show. Brad Singletary here. You guys, I'm super excited about this. Number one, we have one of our first video shows here that we're doing. We've done a couple, and we'll see how this turns out. Hopefully, we turn this into a video show. If this is only sound, you know that Brad failed somewhere with something. But I'm really excited about our guest today. We have Steve Edwards and Kevin O'Neill, both entrepreneurs, both doing very well in their businesses. I'll let them talk about what they do. Also, both podcasters. And our topic today, we're going to kind of review the book No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. This is something that I recommend all men read, whether you see yourself as a nice guy or not. We're going to kind of talk about nice guy syndrome. By the way, I'm a recovering nice guy. And this is something that the title is a little bit misleading in a way, because you hear that and you think, well, you should be an asshole. That's not what it's about. But to me, it means basically, don't get walked on. Don't be a doormat, and you don't have any respect if you're too nice. So let me get back to our guest. So Steve Edwards, introduce yourself here, brother.
Hey, what's happening? Thanks for having us today, or having me. I don't care if you guys want to have Kevin, but my name is Steve Edwards. I own a digital marketing agency here in Las Vegas. We focus on tourism and tour attractions, tour operators, as well as a tour operation company. So we do Vegas Jeep tours, Las Vegas boat and jet ski rentals, and a handful of other entities, but serving the Las Vegas tourist market.
Awesome.
My name's Kevin O'Neill, and I am the owner of Destiny Water Adventures. We have another company launching here in February called Destin Jeep. I got a few other logs in the fire that we're currently working on. And I also do a podcast myself called the Awkward Water Sports Guys. And when I'm not doing that, I'm pretty much walking around my house talking to Steve a lot.
You're walking around your house in shorty shorts.
Short shorts. I find the lowest cut shorts. These are 5 inches. These are the shortest shorts you possibly can get. And I wear them because I find them very off-putting. And the ladies at the gym probably find them very attractive, but the men probably find them really off-putting. So,
Brad, do you think it's weird that most of our conversations that Kevin is in a bathtub?
Are you serious?
Dude, why do we have to get into that, man?
Why do you have to tell on him like that?
No, because that's everyone's going to be copying. Like, that's Steve Jobs shit, dude. That's like fruitarian type stuff, man. You know what I mean? That's like my secret. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. Like, I do all my thinking in my bathtub. Yeah, I do a lot of bathtubs. I think, when people are like, oh, you should take a walk to do your thinking, I take a bath to do my thinking. It's the only room in the house that I get left alone. Like, there's 2 doors that separate the bathtub from my family and my children. So I really want to get away from everybody. I have to go take a bath. I light some candles, do some bubbles. All right. That's enough.
Drop a nice little bath bomb in. That's super nice.
Come on. Stop riffing.
Appreciate you both being here, man. Now, you mentioned your business there, Kevin, but that's Destin, Florida. That's one of the Jeep Destin and whatever, Destin, Florida, which is in the Panhandle. I grew up down there and know some of that territory down there. So water sports still running down in Florida? Is it too cold?
Man, we're like one of the last companies open, and I was sort of like, man, I wish I would have stayed open this month because things got cold. And then we have Thanksgiving, and we got real busy. Well, not crazy busy, but busy enough for the last week in November, and then we'll shut down. So yeah, man, things are still rocking and rolling up here. People want to go out on boats, and what else is there to do in North Florida during Thanksgiving?
Methamphetamines.
Yeah, there it is. Lots of meth. But that's all year round. That's my all year round business, Steve. And that's why I'm heavily invested into old shitty trailers. So if anybody's got any of those for sale,
old RVs out in the woods.
That's my 365 paper out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Who is it? Who's the talk show who says you need 5 streams of income? Kevin's main one is old trailer parks in the middle of the woods.
Is that Dave Ramsey?
No. What's who hosts Family Feud? What's his name?
Family Feud. Oh, Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to say Louis. What was Louis Armstrong or what's the fat guy?
That guy only had
the
one
trumpet player. No, the fat guy who used to do a Family Feud before Steve Harvey.
Yeah.
Remember the big fat dude, Louis something? It wasn't Louis Armstrong's a trumpet player.
I don't know.
All right, you guys, no more Mr. Nice Guy. What is this about? We've all 3 just read this book or reread it recently. Steve is a big fan.
I'm a huge fan.
Maybe because you're a recovering nice guy?
Yeah, I think that this book summarizes like 90% of the guys in your personal life. It's 2020, 2021, where, divorce is at as high of a rate as humanly possible. Guys are unhappy in their lives, are unhappy in their marriages, they're unhappy in their skin. And a lot of this has to do with straight nice guy syndrome and guys not taking the
straight. What do you mean by that? You mean like straight nice guy, or did you mean like straight nice guys?
Straight nice.
but they talk about it's like you can be a homosexual nice guy, you can be a nice girl.
Yes, I didn't mean it like that. You asked.
I seriously, I just wanted to.
You wanted to clarify?
That.
Okay,
I did. I think. Listen, I think it's a fairly because it deals a lot with heterosexual relationships, but as when I read it, I felt as though like this could be applied across the board. It's not just for men. I think you could read this, as a woman, and you know what I mean. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I really did just want to be like, wait, did you really mean clarify. Like straight? Nice
my apologies for using straight.
Wasn't I just wasn't sure if you meant like straight, like as in hip hop, straight nice guy, or heterosexual. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, so I was going to say, I mean, what we see is guys making, poor decision-making skills in the relationships. They're not showing up to their relationships. They're, the covert contract is real. There's a lot of like misgivings happening by guys where instead of actually taking the necessary steps to show up, be a man, lead their household, they've got a lot of nice guy attributes.
So let's talk about some of those attributes. So I think this is kind of codependency relabeled, but sure. Maybe not necessarily. But he talks about characteristics of nice guy syndrome. These guys are givers. They're very generous, but they believe that that should create some reciprocation. Like if I do this for you, you'll do this for me. They're fixers and caretakers. Everything they do is, they're trying to gain approval.
I think some of this before you can head down that road, I think you almost got to start with like, how did we even get here? Because when you go back and you look at your grandparents and you look at like men of 1950s, 1960s, I don't think that there was such a forefront of nice guys. And that's also when you saw that like, marriage or divorce wasn't at an all-time high. And guys were forced to stick it out. Guys really had to show up. And I think what ended up changing that was in, 1960s, 1970s, all of a sudden, you had a lot of stay-at-home moms and you had, guys not raising their kids. Kids were being raised by women entirely. Kids didn't have a male figure in their life. And they didn't have any sort of that male, I hate to call it machismo, but that male strength the strength that carries over. and you get raised with a lot of feminine ideals, and you're carrying that over into your relationship. I don't think being a nice guy is this idea of like giving. I think that that's one of like the effects. I think that that's like one of the give and takes. But yeah, I think that you almost have to understand how you became a nice guy before you could ever understand how to fix it.
But you're talking about not just individually how you became one, but how this whole like
society
society changed. It turned men into nice guys. What are some other things that contributed to that, Kevin? Got any ideas on how we shifted from the tough John Wayne type of man to what we become now?
Yeah, in fact, I think you can really get more granular on that, because he talks about World War II, right? So like this is or even possibly World War I. But World War II, so he talks about how you have the male influence, and I put that in air quotes, because I think, and without like getting super getting super granular on it and like really trying to take it back throughout society to determine what constitutes like patriarchy versus matriarchy, or where you start to see like alpha patterns throughout biology and society. I guess that's like probably the closest place you can take it is World War II. And so you see this big exodus, this mass exodus of men within our culture leave. And I sort of like immediately I wanted to sort of challenge that when I started thinking about it, until we start talking like those men have left always. If you were to go and sow the fields, like through men going and hunting, but there was a rite of passage throughout history of men, even as men starting manhood at a very early age. So when you take this out of the family dynamic, even at say 12, 13, 14, where you're going and working in a field, if you're a farmer or doing something in this nature, even going off to war themselves at a very early age, 14 years old, and the Civil War. So where you have this mass exodus of men from our culture, and you start to see it happening, you start to see the patterns happening within within pop culture, within our literature, within our music. You take to the 50s, the beginning probably starts somewhere around the beatniks. So you have Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg, who's openly gay, and start to highlight these sort of feminine. It's a difficult thing for me to sort of characterize, but I guess you could call it feminine traits, and then start to popularize them. And then you have the connection. You have the beatniks sort of go to the 60s, where Steve started to talk about. You have the androgyny of the 70s, men starting to have long hair. Nothing that there's wrong with any of this shit. And don't get me wrong, you have long hair and still be a man. But before this time,
can you have a man? Can you have a man bun and still be a man?
Yeah. Yes, you can. But to see all of these things start to shift, and I really started thinking about this because I'm like, start thinking about like, like Mick Jagger, dude. Like Mick Jagger's sort of like, you know what I mean? He's pretty like an androgynous dude, but he's getting tons of pussy, man. So I'm like, I don't know if this like all like 100% works, but regardless, you start to see this happening in our literature. You start to see it happen in music. It starts to become pervasive, and then this it not only is it becomes popularized or accepted, then it becomes popularized. Like now it's cool to be sad and depressed and sort of crooning. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, and now it's not only become popular, now it's become the normal, right? Now if you're not somehow I don't want to say like emasculated in some ways, but it is, and now it's like almost like a prerequisite to this point of this phrase called toxic masculinity. So if I'm too much of a man, if I identify too much of what it is coursing through my veins biologically, I'm wrong or incorrect or not accepted throughout society. And I think this is causing a lot of problems, not just within our relationships, but within our society, in all facets of it, because we're asking ourselves to sort of dial back something in some of us that's, that's been within us from, since the creation of time. So.
Well, and to even touch on that, I mean, in 2021, where you see how much it's being pushed that as a man, you are basically just toxic no matter what you do. And in some capacity, you need to be more female, more sensitive to women, more sensitive to everything. You've got to be accepting of everything. You can't have any sort of different ideal than what the softest woman has. Well, otherwise, you're toxic. I think that's a very challenging thing to pass down to boys. I think it's a really challenging thing to, to think, if this is what it looks like today, how bad is it going to be 20 years from now? And how do you rein in your sons? How do you make your boys still be men in a society that really doesn't want them to be men?
Yeah, and I think I'm not like an evolutionary biologist. I've read enough books on history and human nature and philosophy and things of this nature. I feel like sort of quasi qualified to talk about this a little bit. But if you look at it as in its most base form, right? I feel like it's competition. All right, so men are by nature, I would say, competitive. Right, I don't want to say more competitive than women or anything of that nature. Take everything case by case. But as boys, instinctually, it's in us. We beat our chest. We bang stuff. We grab stuff. We're just a more aggressive.
We hunt.
Yes, we're very aggressive. Even like my wife was like trying to. She was like my boy was like grabbing and smashing and breaking. And I was like, yes. And my wife was like, and she wasn't feeling like feminazzi. Like, don't encourage that. I was like, of course I'm going to encourage that. Like that's what he wants. What he wants to do. He wants to grab and pull and smash. I'm not trying to tell him punch people in the fucking face or anything like that. But that's like it's in us to be competitive. And so I think we're having like sort of a disconnection is competition happens throughout nature. Right? There's no like repressing the tree not to grow higher than the other trees, right? We're not asking like the competitions throughout nature. And the reason competition is throughout nature is because competition equates to survival. In nature, you don't see passivity. In nature, you don't see shiftlessness. You don't see any type of blamelessness. And I think that's like when you repress that in men, when you try and repress that natural instinct to want to be competitive, to want to grow, to want to fight, and I mean like fight to be better. And when you reward that behavior, oh yeah, no, it's okay. No, you're free to be you and me. Like this whole idea that I'm okay, you're okay. To me, it's bullshit. And rewarding this, I don't, body positive shit, all of that stuff. To me, it's like if you're a man, a woman, a cat, a dog, I don't really give a rat's ass what, you know what I mean? That's fine. If you are not striving to be a better person, if you're not fighting, if you don't have inner competition to grow as a human being, and just left to your own devices, like you're going to end up at a failure point. And it doesn't matter. Like we can go down this road forever and society and whatever, but at some point there's a reset, right? Mm-hmm. From the Bible to Fermi's paradox, whatever text it is that you read, there is a reset, and there's always been resets throughout all of history. Whatever, the dinosaurs, there's a reset, and you take away all of this stuff, and we're just right back to our natural instincts in order to survive, breed, move forward. These natural instincts that exist all throughout nature, that exist strongly through men, are going to be the things that continue our species forward. And if there's like a paradigm shift where that's more strong in women, then by all means, like I don't, you know, people ask, it's a question like, how do you have like more women in your industry? You know, I don't come do it. I don't like, I can't answer that question. Like, I don't know, like, there's no like, there's no like fucking bait I put on the end of a hook to make somebody do something. It's just, I fucking get it, man. Like, and I think that's everywhere we go. And that's what I love about this book is that it's teaching men to go fucking get it. To like, you know, get real with yourself, get honest with yourself, and state the nature of what it is that you fucking want. And we mentioned the covert contract, And one of you guys want to like explain that a little bit? So if someone's scratching their head on that covert contract thing, Steve, why don't you jump in here and shut me up?
I love it. I love you, buddy. Covert contract. Covert contract is doing something such as like clean the kitchen, I dump the dishwasher. And guys, the most popular one with guys is the trade-off for sex, is doing things basically without being asked in exchange for a trade-off. So you're going to go cook dinner, you're going to clean you're going to dump the dishwasher, you're going to do the laundry. And in exchange, you feel that your wife or significant other should give you sex. And it can be applied a million different ways. That's the most popular one because, you know, if you get down to simple nature of what guys really want a lot of times more in life, it's like sex because they feel like women withhold sex. Okay. So what do? They do very nice guy things and without clear disposition of what their intentions are. And when they don't get that, then it creates animosity and it creates resentment and it creates nice guy action of sitting and pouting and being a little instead of stating what your intentions are. And Brad, I'm sure, has a great like clinical answer to a covert contract. But the sex is the biggest play in men's life as far as a covert contract.
Yeah, I'm going to work really hard to give you something that I think you want. This is covert because we're not talking about it. This isn't an actual contract where you both read through and sign it on the line. This is covert because you don't know that I'm thinking this, and I don't know that you're, no. We're both pretending like we don't know that this thing is existing, and it usually fails. That's the part of this. You know, the point of this book is I think it's to empower men with the awareness that you're producing powerlessness in yourself. And so we've kind of talked a little bit about how culture and society has kind of set up this thing, maybe even globally, to where men are supposed to play shallow, play nice, be calm, be cool, and don't have any needs. There's a lot of talk in the book about abandonment, and boy, we can go deep into that about whether or not this happened in our past. We're afraid of abandonment. And so if I don't have any needs, if I don't make waves, if I don't stir the pot or create any problem anywhere, I'm protecting myself by not being abandoned. And so this softness, when I started this whole thing, I really saw there really being two types of men that are too hard, just cold and rigid and closed off and douchebaggish, and then there's the soft guy. The guy's way too nice. He's just bending whatever you want, dear, all those kinds of things. There was a trend when I got married anyway, that at weddings, the videographer goes around and they ask all the old men and all the old couples, hey, give the newlyweds some advice here. And what do the old guys always say? Just say yes, dear, and you'll be fine. Just give in to everything. And that is, I'm ashamed. I mean, that's the worst kind of thing that doesn't really work. Sometimes you do have to just.
Well, isn't the saying "happy wife, happy life"?
I was gonna say happy life.
And what
wait, oh, wait a minute. No,
I mean, without being cheesy like Facebook like memes, but happy wife, happy life is bull. I mean, because who is like, is your wife pandering to you to make sure you're happy? Or is a lot of your energy, and I'm not using your wife, I'm saying in like general speaking, because I love Tammy. Tammy's amazing. But
that's my wife is Tammy, by the way.
But I know, but to that, you know, so I've heard it the other way, you know, for the longest time, all we've heard is happy wife, happy life. And instead of like happy spouse, happy house, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where is your, don't you love that? I'm gonna make sweet stickers to stick on your wall, like next to live,
happy
laugh, love.
Spouse, happy house.
You like that, don't you?
I do, because now I feel like it's like now I feel like there's some like Libby like and like I don't identify as a wife. It's gotta be happy spouse, happy house. Like,
I don't think that's where it came from.
I'm not a wife. Hey, so all right, I want to play devil's advocate a little bit on that.
Of course you do.
Of course I do. Well, yeah, because I mean, Jesus, if it didn't come out of your mouth straight down the mountain from on high, then it couldn't possibly be questioned, could it, Stephen?
Nope.
Nope. So my first question is that one of those like workout mirrors behind you? That thing there on that stand? Is that one of those like?
Are you talking on me? Right here?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, that's a Peter Lick art piece that hasn't been hung in my house yet.
Oh, I thought it was like one of those, like those crazy like
no, that's like
$5,000.
No, it's like $5,000 of art that hasn't been hung on the wall yet.
Wow. Feel free to edit out Steve's ridiculous flex. Hey, if there's ladies listening to this, Steve's got $5,000 in art in his. we're not even gonna talk about. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't want to get derailed.
You said the guy's name was Peter Lick.
Liks. I realize where your joke is going, but
yeah, I got something Peter can lick.
Yeah, good you do.
Peter Lick. Oh, I didn't even realize the double, triple entendre that was happening on there.
God, you're so lame.
Winner.
That camo hat, that's hot. That's pretty hot.
You have one for your Lions Not Sheep, or your commercial for Sean Whalen here, man. Just take it easy.
Get out of here.
Steve just ordered the shirt after he saw that I bought it.
That is some bullshit. What a fanboy.
But there's not something to be said though about like, I mean, man, like so again, if you can take it back to like on John Wayne, you know what I mean? He wasn't like just straight up like slapping hysterical women. Remember those like the I don't know movies when they like get a hold of yourself and fucking slaps there or whatever. Like I mean, there was still like romance, man. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That Frank Sinatra was still, you know, like crooning to the ladies, man. He was still bringing home roses. He was still like putting in that work. And so like don't get it like and because the book and I don't want to get it like misinterpreted here, where it's like where guys are like, you know, so this meek guy that you're talking about, because I want to go back on that too, about the nice bad guy. But I don't want guys to listen to this and be like, look, you don't need to be the dude at the that's like, oh, what? It's our anniversary. Totally forgot. I got poker with the boys. You know, you, sweetie. Like, it's not being like a total asshole, right? You know what I mean? It's being assertive, but so you can there's still things that you should be doing for each other to, you know, but the point is like, you don't give a bouquet of roses because you're like, I'm going to get some sex, you know what I mean? Like you like give roses because you, or whatever it may be, the gesture, the romantic thing to do because you genuinely want to just make your spouse feel appreciated or loved or wanted. You're not doing it with the intention of getting something back in return or fixing, and trying to fix something on your own that needs fixing together. And to that point, going back a little bit, you know, there's the inverse of that. And, you know, without like getting wildly personal, like I was the nice bad guy. I was the nice tantrum guy. I was the guy that like punched walls and shit. You know what I mean? This is like back in my 20s and stuff. But there's the extreme, the opposite extreme, like where you're throwing a tantrum. You know, not instead of like, oh, you know, yeah, I'm gonna go masturbate in my bathtub. You know, like, you know, there's a guy that's like, you don't love me, and like, you know, throwing shit and to that point, like then you have the very extreme version of that where you have these like domestic assaulting, wife beating pieces of like they fall into the the nice guy category. But it's just saw as a very extreme version of itself. This is somebody that's got, you know, toxicity that and what do they call it, like toxic shame and the inability to connect with anybody else or with themselves, and then it's acted out. It's acted out in you know these extreme I want not even necessarily violent, abusive, however you want to, you know, swearing, screaming, like getting pissed off, like that sort of thing. So you can be the bad Mr. Nice Guy as well. This just doesn't apply to you if you're listening to this thinking that like, oh, that's not me. I break dishes. Like I'm super masculine.
So yeah, I think go for it. Sorry, Brad.
Well, you go to a domestic violence class and it's a room, you know, these are like the court mandated, the guy got charged and whatever. And the room is full of nice guys. These are people that have just let things just boil underneath the surface for too long. And they've been too accommodating and too flexible and too nice and too, you know, just overly, they're doing the caretaking. They're trying to fix everything. They're always feeling responsible. And the motivation, that's something that Kevin was talking about. The motivation for everything they do is for approval. And then when that pops and they no longer have that approval, or there's some clear indication, that's when they go from nice guy to demon man, who's totally being just evil and abusive. So it's very much the case where the nice guy becomes his sort of shadow self and is no longer nice at all. And just don't think the title doesn't apply to you if because you can get angry sometimes. That's probably part of the nice guy syndrome itself.
I think one of the big words, and we probably haven't touched on it yet, that in the book they talk about is being, for a nice guy, being nice is a form of manipulation. Okay. It's a form of manipulation and it's passive aggressive activities. You know, they're being nice as a tool for an exchange of value to them. So, you know, this obviously, because again, we can talk about it as a guy, it's easy to quantify this to sex, but it's, you know, it can be trickled down to a million other things. But as we've learned throughout history and dating and relationships, you know what women are not attracted to? Nice guys. Women find nice guys extremely, you know, they think they're nice, but they're not attractive. There's nothing, you know, that's why they continue to go out with the bad guy. They continue to go out with the guy that doesn't, you know, call them when he's supposed to. And to Kevin's point earlier of like being an asshole, I think that that's like some reindeer games and some bull that guys play. But I think, you know, if you want to unpack like where the real issues in this lie is in that term manipulation. You know, how are you being a nice guy in exchange to try to manipulate a situation?
Yeah. I'm not that. It's tough for me. I was like going through and listening to the, looking at like the examples and like, you know, obviously these aren't like the real guys' names, but there was one in there, Alan, I put like a note because he goes on a business trip with the young hot coworker and they're at a hotel and they're drinking and they're in a jacuzzi and the hot coworker, she's in a string bikini and she's sitting on his lap and they're making out and then she wants to go back to her room and Alan turns her down like I think Alan's full of shit, man. Like I want Alan's number and give him a call. I'm like, no way. What? Like Alan, what's wrong with you? Like, because then he says it because the idea is that it's like, you know, he's like trying to get his like gratification. You know, I mean, he just wants to get the attention and get the feeling from it, but then not, you know, actually do anything. So he puts himself in these like crazy sexual situations without, I don't know, man. I think Alan's testosterone's a little bit low because again, if we're going like this far and then Alan's not getting it in, man, like I want to do a little bit of research on that, on the Alan character. I don't know how much I believe an Alan story.
I always think like, to like even your profession, Brad, and, you probably see a lot of this, but it's a lot of like fear of failure. It's fear of exposing yourself. Everybody wants to, you put on a podcast, based around being an alpha. But what does that actually mean? What does being an alpha mean? What does being a man mean? Um, and if you're using manipulation, or you're afraid of being criticized, you're afraid of actually being who you are in because of the judgment of others. I mean, we've all done it. I mean, I'm as guilty as anybody else of wanting the acceptance of others, because as much as, and I think that this is something that comes into being a man as you get older. But when you look back at like being 20 years old, or, let's even go a little bit further in high school, Kevin knows one of my drivers to get to where I've gotten in life has been, both my parents are happily married. They've been married for like 45 years, 50 years, forever. And my dad was in the Air Force. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and they didn't have the money to give me the sweet sneakers like I wanted in high school, or like in not even high school, middle school.
Jordan.
Like,
they were Jordan. It was Jordan.
I wanted Jordans. So
I don't want to expose any of your. I don't want to expose any of your personal, information too much. I don't want to make this a raw nerve opening about the Michael Jordans.
I wanted these Jordans so bad. And my mom, like, they were like $130. And when I told my mom, she laughed, and then I laughed, and then she kept laughing, and I never got Jordans. And it's basically been this like huge driver of like, I never wanted to be in a situation where I couldn't get the things that I want. But because of the nature of that, I mean, I've also been full of shit. I have bought cars and bought things that I had no business buying because I couldn't afford them. I have, I've done stuff, and I've, been friends with people because I thought, I don't know, because I wanted their acceptance. And it's taken me to get to 41 years old to realize, like, I don't care. Like, I don't need you in my life. I don't want these people that are fake in my life. I want to surround myself with people that make me a better person. But I think that that's a really hard thing to say to yourself when you're 25. I think it's a hard thing to say to yourself and believe believe what you're saying to yourself.
I want to jump in on this, and I I don't have like I'm not like I don't have like as many leather-bound books behind me as Brad does. I'm gonna defer to you on this, but it was Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Was it Maslow?
Yes.
The 7 hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
And without like studying the psychology behind that, this also tied into fight or flight as well, right? So I feel like at the base root of all this shit, it comes down to fight or flight. And because as I'm reading the books, I'm thinking about this, and I'm going like, is some kid over in Afghanistan, or like in some tribal village, or Rwanda or somewhere like this, where violence is injected in the situation. Is this like something? Is this a conversation that they're having? Is this an issue over there? Is there somebody that it is around extreme violence? So that is to say that is an actual fight or flight, not societal fight or flight. Are they having like this same? It's like, no, Muhammad, no more fight or flight. He's like, I'm gonna go chop her head off, or behead him, or whatever, stone her to death, or something like this. You know what I mean? Like, so is this like a uniquely an American problem?
Are you talking about the social fight or flight?
Well, yeah, because that we have it so easy here as Americans, and we do, as far as not even maybe a Western. I'm sorry, we'll just say Western. Is this a Western problem? So we have a societal fight or flight that's kicking in because we don't have actual fight or flight that's happening in our life. We're not like, would I even be considering this? Would I be suffering? Like I had so for me, it wasn't Jordan, because if I went down the street in my neighborhood growing up with Jordans, I probably would have got robbed or shot for them. So, I look in terms of and again, I'm Steve, I'm trying to, like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, but
Right.
I see how this how this manifested in me becoming a nice guy. But again, as I said, like, when I was younger, it was I had more of the violent, tendencies, the anger issues cropping up. And I wonder if this has to do with being in a more violent upbringing and a more societally violent upbringing. So I don't know if they're having these same kind of conversations where you actually are wondering how you're going to eat that day, or you're wondering, if you're going to, get home alive. Like, is this something that is unique to Western culture? And I don't know, like, almost like entitlement issues.
Well, sure. I mean, this is a Western problem because, I mean, when you think of like where this stems from, if this stems from a huge abundance of femininity in your life, or this inability to recognize what it's like to be a man, and even to that, like, if you're talking about the difference between like having food and having a pair of Jordans, I would say that there's probably a huge difference in that. But I think that gets, I mean, that gets way deeper than a book about a guy, dumping the dishwasher to expect a blow.
Well, right, but I think it's really okay. So when we talked, you and I talked about the book itself. We talked about how that there was a lack of solutions. So for me, in order for me to overcome for me to becoming a recovering nice guy, I say this all with like sort of like a grain of salt, right? Because all these things are still like, this is a very nuanced, right? This is like medicine. This is like biology. There's a lot of stuff happening here. So to take it back on one more step, you have to read this book with a grain of salt. So the reason I talk about this sort of stuff is because I want to deconstruct it. And the reason I want to deconstruct it is because I read a lot of great books that were like, oh man, like, this is how how you achieve in business. This is how you deal better in social situations. And I'm like, oh yeah, but at the root, I was still fucked up, man. You know what I mean? At the root, and I'm not saying like, oh, I read the book and now I'm great, everything worked. But it did give me some answers as to why I felt awkward in social situations, like why it was hard for me to walk up to a group of people and be like, hi, I'm Kevin, without like being drunk. You know what I mean? Like, different episode. Well, different episode, I guess, a different day. But so it makes me want to sort of like deconstruct this stuff. Like, I want to keep now after I read it, because there's a ton of great books out there. And again, I'm not a clinical psychologist, but some of those, I really like Jack Canfield's Success Principles, because it provides some answers, some of this stuff. So I almost felt like I was going in reverse. Like, I read Audrey Marcus, Own the Day, Own Your Life, another great book. So if you're reading this going like, all right, well, so I read the No More Mr. Nice Guy. Well, where do I go from here? I started with all the Andy Frisella and the Gary V's and all this stuff. And I'm like trying to implement this stuff into my life. But at the same point in time, I'm going, man, why though? Like, why am I still all fucked up, man? Like, why am I still participating in these covert contracts? Why are me and my wife still jammed up? Why am I not like,
because I don't think guys do the work. I think with all of this, I think guys buy courses, and guys buy books, and guys buy, guys go to therapy, guys do all of this stuff, and they don't do the work.
Yeah. I mean, but my point being was that it's like, as the reason I was talking about this fight or flight stuff is because like I love it, and I want to deconstruct it more. Well, because I think that's really where it comes from, right? Because your need to connect with somebody, it's not just about the sex, man. It's about feeling loved, feeling needed, like, and I brought up those hierarchy of needs because, one of those hierarchy of needs, like if you don't pick a baby up in its first, 7 days, you need connection. You need to feel connection. And it's gonna to do that work. This isn't like you're gonna read a book and be able to
not at all
not feel that anymore. And again, I believe that the book is truly at its very base is talking about an emotional fight or flight situation, because you're scrambling, man. You're doing the dishes not just because you want to get your DS. You're doing the dishes because you want love, man. You know what I mean? You want love from your spouse, and you can say, "I love you, honey." You know what I mean? And then we're gonna sleep in separate bedrooms, because the physical manifestation of love, right, is love making. And I really wish the guy would call it fucking. I'm sorry, like he's like, this is when you're gonna go home and you're gonna make love. Like, man, come on, bro. No. Like,
that's his nice guy stuff still showing up.
Yeah, yeah, man. Like, look, and I know, man. I know you. I'm sorry, man. I'm so sorry. I know you're like the swearing thing. It is a part of me, man. But sometimes you need to ask. You know what I mean? Like, you can't turn on Al Green, man, and get a nice like slow lovemaking session. I think that's also nice guy shit. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you gotta like get up in there, man. You gotta be animalistic in nature. You gotta go back to those first few days that like when you first connected with your woman or something like that. You know what I mean? Because it was all animalistic. You know what I mean?
But so to that, I agree with you 1,000%. But I think you're more in the weeds than, we're disconnected from that. We're a step, like if you're at the point where you're reading this book and you're like in this nice guy behavior, you're not getting all up in anything.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not even at a spot where, you're sympathy fucking. She's giving up ass because you're married, not because, and I think that's where, when I say do the work, Brad is, I've known Brad for a long time, and it's been a hard road. It's taken a long road to get to where I'm at right now. And I would say that I know more men that are miserable in their relationships and unhappy with their lives, and they don't know how to dig themselves out of the shit that they're in. And you could hand them the book and you could talk to them about this, but unless you're ready to accept some real brutal self-honesty and look in the mirror and see that, okay, here's where I'm broken, and here are these necessary steps to get out of my own way. Let's be real. You talk about acceptance and love. Really, it comes down to, and Brad, we've discussed this, it's not even, guys don't want to be told that they're loved. They want to be told that they're appreciated, right, that they're respected, that at the core root, they just want to be acknowledged that they're there and that they're of value. That, right, there's another book, like, what is it? What's that other book? Not Valuable Male,
the Superior.
Way of the Superior.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry. Way of the Superior Man. Guys want to be respected and accepted for who they are. And at a certain point, that's where the idea of like having fake friends, having, putting on fake ideals, being somebody you're not so that you can get the acceptance of others. That's where you really, I think, if you want to like figure out how do you stop doing this, you can't fix what you don't know isn't broken.
Well, I think of what a lot of guys too, they're blind to, they just see themselves as a victim, and they're like, she won't do this, and I can't ever it never goes my way. And I can't, I'm never happy because of the external situation. And they think, what's so wrong with me? I do all this and I work hard and I take care of her and I give her everything she wants. And I'm always, looking out for her, and I buy her things and I do all these things. A lot of this really comes down to relationships. He talks about, how to get what you want in life, love and sex or something like that. But really, yeah, I think the nice guy problem shows up in relationships. And if things aren't happening for you, it's probably that you're stuck in some of this stuff where you're just walking around living in weakness and you have no idea. You think you're working through. You think that restraining your voice, you think that keeping calm, you think that avoiding the fight, you think that giving and serving and loving and sacrificing. There's a place for that. I think on the other side of the spectrum is the guy who needs to forget himself and totally, it's on a continuum. We're talking about nice guys who never really get what they want and they're confused by it because look at all this stuff I'm doing. Look at every time the garbage needs taken out, I take it out every time and I do all these things and I'm always looking out for you.
I go to work. I bring home the money.
I bring home the money. Yes, I'm taking care of the kids. I'm the best dad ever. I do all these things. Why can't I get what I need? And
but I'll even say that to you and I, Kevin. Like, look at how many close male friends. I would say you and I are pretty close. But how many other friends do you have that, or how many other guys do you know that have friendships like ours? Or how many guys do you know that even have close male friends that they can talk about their problems with?
I don't have a lot of time because after this, I got to do a podcast with my other best friend. So as soon as we're done. I mean, that's like I'm lined up, man. I can't even 4 o'clock in the morning gonna run son of a bitch, man. But so I want to double back on this again. I got to do it, man. I got to do it. But you have to look too at it's not just 100% you. So you can do all this shit, right? And they talk about in the books, they talk about boundaries. Now, the issue is, and I'll open it up. I'm a pretty open guy, but my wife is a Mr. Nice Guy too. So the problem is when you have two people in a relationship that are broken, and what do we say, Steve? Hurt people. Hurt people. Yeah, hurt people. But it's true. So the point is, and we talk about boundaries. So in the book, so if you don't start setting some of these boundaries and creating deadlines, right? And Steve, I know you know this one too, but what is it? A goal without a deadline, it's just a dream or a wish or something like this. Yeah. So if you don't assert yourself, and these are very difficult things that we're talking about. You got a relationship for 15 years that's broken or 10 years that's broken, and you start making boundary lines and you set hard lines.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fucking, dude, this could be game over for your relationship, especially if she continues to remain broken. And the reason I say that, and I told my wife, I said, man, I'm going to put me on the damn show and I'm going to have to get a little personal. Because me and my wife were like really broken, man. You know what I mean? Like really, really broken. And there was if either of us drew the boundary lines that if we both read this book together, let's say 10 years ago, me and my wife have been together almost 20 years. But if we drew these boundary lines on each other and we didn't, and we would have ended in divorce. So when I say this to anybody that's listening to this, this could very well end your relationship. For me, I talked about with Steve before we went on the show. I'm like, God, man, if somebody asked me relationship advice, and I say do it the way I did it, man, you are in for some real heartache, man, because the other person, their accountability matters too, and that's why they say you should read this book with your spouse. You should read this again. So if you're some 20-year-old kid listening to this, and you know what I mean, you've been through a handful of relationships, you need to make sure you're setting these boundary lines into your next thing. If you're a guy our age and you've been in something that hasn't been working for a really long time, then I say this with a lot of caution, because this could be, if you draw the boundary lines and she keeps on stepping over them, she doesn't, do the things that that she needs to be doing on her end to make this thing work, then you got to grow together, man. You know what I mean? So luckily in our relationship, me and my wife both, we saw the biggest, the most toxic thing between us was drinking. And so that had to be, we knew that was the first thing that needed to go out the window for us to start getting right with one another. We had to start doing the deep work on ourselves. And so without getting insanely too personal or making this episode about me in any way, I'm very, very thankful that my wife was able to start doing the work, and I was doing the work without reading the book. It was a very long process for us, and we came out the other side, and today we're doing great. But she's growing with me, though. That's the most important thing.
100%.
So you either gotta set those boundaries and say either you're gonna, we're gonna either do this together, we're gonna grow together, we're gonna get better together. But if those boundary lines keep on getting crossed, then you got some serious soul searching. You got to ask yourself what your happiness is worth, because it could be worth your life, man. Like you see these guys, man, see them sitting there on vacation or something, and they're both like not exchanging a single word. I remember saying that to my wife one time, like watching this other couple, and they're sitting there and they're not even talking, man. They're having their fucking lunch or whatever, and they're drinking their coffee, and they're like not saying a single word. And they're gonna go home. There's gonna be no fucking, like there hasn't been probably for 10 years. They're probably going to sing in their single sad bed, 10 feet between each other. And they're either going to live a life of unhappiness, or they're going to wait way too long and then get a divorce when they're all gross and wrinkly and can't get anything better. You know what I mean? If you've seen Tinder at 60, that's a sad place.
I mean, we're putting it out there. I've done this twice. I've failed 2 marriages, and I certainly can't take all the blame for it. But I'm self-aware enough that I can look back at these marriages and I can see that, a major common denominator was me and my actions or my lack thereof. I mean, my nice guy tendencies, my failures. I mean, and coming out of my previous marriage, I was a bag of shit. I was a mess because I put all of my self-worth in somebody else. I, depended on this person, and, I was like king of covert contracts. It's like, I could have wrote you a book. That would have been my book, is like how to create the perfect covert contract. And all it does is it creates a lot of guilt and animosity. And you're 100% right. I mean, my marriage didn't end because I set boundaries. My marriage ended because I became a giant vagina, because I wasn't doing the part of being a man. I was not showing up in the relationship. And, she obviously had her parts. And since we've discussed, and she's aware of like what she did, but you're 1,000,000% correct. Because there's a lot of guys that are sitting here like, yeah, man, I feel you. I'm doing these things. But this isn't a linchpin that you can just pull the pin on, like throw the grenade and things are better. You could blow up your relationship.
Yeah.
And I almost want Brad's take on this, because, he sees these guys that are like on the cusp of divorce. They're separated. And how does somebody, nice guy tendencies, reads the book, drinks the Kool-Aid, ready to do the work? How do you instill this into a relationship and not have it implode in front of you?
I think, I would say 90% of guys who separate or divorce, they if they're honest, they would say that they've lost themselves. They're not doing the things that make them feel good anymore. They're just orbiting around their partner, and their whole identity is wrapped up in, I am what I get back from you. And they're seeing themselves as like super diminished. And what does a guy do when he gets divorced? What is the rebuilding? Well, he starts working out, he starts having fun, he starts hanging out with his friends again. He finds himself, and that's what he could have done and should have done before all that. And I know, going through a divorce, that's where I was. I sat there with myself at night on a Saturday night thinking, who even am I? I'm so disconnected from myself, and my whole identity was wrapped up in what I think you think I am, that I was no one. And I carried that into the next relationship, still revolving around, okay, you're the center of the universe for me, and how you treat me is the only indication of who I am. That's miserable, man. That's so much misery. So he talks about,
that's mom and dad shit, right?
Yeah, seriously.
This is coming back from your fucking mom and dad issues.
Yes.
Right? Because it's like the same thing. Like, you know me better than anybody else in the world. You know all my deep, dark secrets, all my subtleties, all my, little quirks and intricacies that make me who I am. Why the don't you love me, man? What is wrong with me? And then that's it. You look in the mirror, you're like, man, I must be a piece of shit. mom and dad didn't love me or mom didn't love me. Now my wife doesn't love me because what you were telling yourself at that point is like, when you really get to know me, when you really get to know who I am, at my core, I'm fucking shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because nobody knows me more than you, and you don't love me. Why?
100%. God. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going around hopping and jumping, trying to do every little thing that I think you might like. And I'm guessing and I'm love bombing and I'm doing all this stuff just to say, man, maybe I can get some meaning out of this. Maybe I can get some value. Maybe I can remember who I am as what is my worth as a human being and as a man. It never really shows. And so we just keep trying, always miserable, thinking, oh, I must need to do more. And all that giving, that's back to the covert contract. It never really pays off.
The challenge I find in this is that, when you look at a lot of guys, they lack those, again, those male friendships. They're not going on hunting trips. They're not, they're not going out riding dirt bikes with the boys. They're not, they've given up their hobbies. They've given up their identity to be with this person. And I think, as a guy, when you look, like when I went through my divorce, right? I'm not from Las Vegas, moved here like 4 years ago. And as I'm sitting here at home alone, I didn't have anybody I could call. I lived in a city of 2 million people, and I had like 2 people I could call to go grab a beer with, or go grab food with. And that became such a realization to me that I'm doing something wrong. I had gone down, I was at like,
Man, I'm booking a plane ticket like right now to come out there and give you a hug, man. I want to give you a hug. I know you are. I want to give you a hug so bad right now, man. I'm like, fucking shit. I just want to just get in there. Yeah.
But I see this. I see this with so many guys. And, and I feel really bad. And it's made me want to be such a better friend. I mean, to that point of like, I'm in a situation now where I have 2 older boys, and like, older as in like adults, 22 and 18. And, the other week, Kevin invited me out to their company company holiday party. And I'm like, I had no reason to say no. And I bought the ticket and I was there. And, middle of this next month, I'm doing the same thing. Him and I have a mutual buddy who's in Denver and in Texas. And I'm doing the same thing. And I'm going out to fly to hang out with him because it's fleeting. Life is fleeting. This is all fleeting. And you can have the coolest things, the nicest house, all these like great accolades and all the big checks in the bank.
I didn't get an invite from Jet to come for the hangout in Denver. Like, what the hell?
We're going to share this. We'll share this podcast with him. It's in Texas. We're going to go drink wine. And
yeah, I'm so upset. Yeah, I want to ride around in this BMW Sprinter. We got a buddy.
Mercedes Sprinter.
I'm sorry. It's Mercedes Sprinter. And it's like, man, he should be on the show because it was like him and his Mercedes Sprinter. And then he like panned. He's like, look how badass this thing is. There was nobody else in there. I was like, man, you could have been in a Geo Metro with like 2 people. You didn't have to spend 180 grand, Jared. Like I'd come hang out with you. But no, I see how it is. That's fine. I didn't get the
I think that
I was busy anyway.
You are really busy.
I had like a bunch of stuff going on. Cool. Fine. I got another guy going to see like in another state.
That's a good point you're making, though, man. The absence of, I think I had a professor who he used to say, the biggest problem in the world is, what did he say it was? He was a child development specialist. He said the biggest problem in the world is low birth weight. So babies born under 5, yeah, seriously, babies born under 5 pounds. That means their intelligence and they weren't nourished properly and whatever. I think the biggest problem in the world is weak men. And I think the reason there are so many weak men is because they don't have any friends and they don't foster relationships. They don't have any sense of tribe. My little litmus test for do you have a tribe is if you needed somewhere to crash tonight, do you have more than one place to go that's not your family? If you had an emergency, is there anybody you could call at 2 a.m. who would drop everything and come help you out? And if you don't, then that means you need some of that. So I want to go to a topic that the guy brings up that's a little bit shocking in the book. He talks about being monogamous to your mother. Now, we're going to go Freudian here. What is he talking about? Remaining monogamous to your mom.
Oh, Kevin. Man, I don't look at me, man. We're like, I mean,
so I'll give my opinion on this, right? So, many of us boys, and myself included, that were raised by women, with my dad was obviously in the picture, but I had a stay-at-home mom, and I have a very close relationship with my mom. My mom has a personality that's very much love it or hate it. I will say that every wife and or girlfriend I've had has at one point really loved my mom, and also gone months without talking to my mom because my mom is very opinionated. You know, it's my mom's way. And I think that this carries over, you know, like when you see how you interact with your mom. Does your mom love you? Are you in this constant like thirst trap to try to get love from your mother? You know, and we've all heard the term mama's boy. I think this all carries over. You know, women want to see that you have a strong relationship with your mom, but they don't understand what that also means, that strong relationship with your mom, you know, sometimes your mom needs to be told no. You know, sometimes your mom is wrong. It's something I've had a problem with. I've had relationship fights where I didn't back my mom off, and my mom's opinion overruled my significant others. And you want to see your relationship go sideways as well, let your mom start making relationship decisions for you versus your significant other.
So I want to present the diametrically opposed other side of that. So me and my mom didn't have a relationship either. When I read like the, you know, hey, you should be to pick up women, you know what I mean? Like in a bar or something, I'd be like, okay, let's see what am I gonna, hey, you're stupid and I hate you. Like, nope, I'm that kind of asshole. Like, God, I've never had a relationship with my mom. I don't know how to be an asshole. But I have a ton of, like, when you said, like, you have one place, I've got 100 places around the country I could go. I mean, I've got like more than a handful of like extremely close friends. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, really?
But listen, I talk to nobody more than I talk to you, Steve. iPhone is eventually, like, there's this new thing where they put the person that you text the most at the top as a T. That's my wife. That's the person you most text the most. Like, she's probably going to eclipse. iPhone is going to change it to an X. It's going to make it Steve. Like, I think you are already. It's already identified you as one of my emergency contacts. It's just up.
That's awesome.
I do have a great group of friends because me and my dad had a great relationship as friends. Like, he was not the best dad in the world, but he sure was a great friend. Like, he gave me the archetypal, like, that's why I talk shit. Like, that's why I joke around. That's why I bust balls. Like, I am that dude. Like, I am that friend. Like, I am that guy. I'm the first guy that if somebody was like something, I would reach across and blow somebody's mouth out if they were my friends, because I didn't have, like, you know, so to speak, like a family. So I created my family. I created bonds with brothers that I am closer to than probably, you know, my entire family. You know what I mean? My blood related family, not my wife and kids and like that. But so to that point, I was always terrible. Like, it was always hard for me. Like, I was always a sad sap when it came to women. Like, there was always this, like, I don't want to say like pity, but it was that, you know, like, oh, you know, like introspective sort of like art when I was younger, you know, like artisty, like deep thinking. Like, I didn't have that charm that could go and like walk into a bar and pick up a lady. I had no idea how to interact with women because my mom and my relationship was so dysfunctional and tough. So, like, to Steve's point, it's like that's when we started this off, when we're like, oh, having a monogamous relationship with your mom. Like, I'm just like, I don't You know, like I went through this whole book going like reading through all these like different traits and things. It was like, no, I'm that guy. I'm like, no, I'm that guy. I'm like, damn it, parents. Both my parents are gone. I mean, they passed away, so I can't call them up and give them a good stern talking to. But I don't. Yeah. So yeah, that I think, and to my point, like I think that's why I'm able to be able to be that way with men, and I can have a strong relationship with men because my dad kind of like was always that person to me. Like he was always a good buddy of mine. You know what I mean? So
I wonder if that did shape things though. So like where Steve's saying they had a very close relationship, maybe even too close. She started to kind of, interfere in his romantic relationships and stuff. Where you had the absence of that, I wonder if that also shaped it in a negative way. Are you saying? I mean, like I wonder if that made you more dependent, or
100%,
seeking approval. So that was a hole or something that you're trying to fill.
Yeah, because my wife knows I'm a notorious flirt. I am terrible. I'm a terrible flirt, man. You like get me in a room with like 100 women, I'm gonna flirt with them, but it'll probably like real awkwardly because I'm still not saying that I've ever got really better at like trying to pick up women because I've been with my wife for 20 years. But I mean, I like have like dad jokes. I do like the wink. I'll do the wink and the guns. Like I flirt with every girl, but that's how I am. Like, I need the girl's attention because Bob didn't hug me enough. But yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Absolutely. And then that's where you get into like serial cheating and all that shit because you're like out there trying to find, like old Alan. I don't in the book, he probably didn't get a lot of, I don't know if Alan was like one of the guys who had this serial relationship with his mom. I don't know. That one part really bothered me, man. About Alan. I'm like, Alan, bro, just do it, man.
Was that where he's talking about vagophobia?
My favorite fucking part, vagophobia. Get out of here. but yeah, no. I don't know. I keep on going back to Alan, man. So I was like, this part's bullshit. But so let's get back, Steve. You're a mama's boy? Is that what
I've definitely grown up as a mama's boy for sure. I mean, I still my mom's in my life every day. I think it's gotten better, but I mean, it has taken some setting of boundaries. I mean, and I think it's easier, or I think it's not easier. I think it's an easy path where guys, if they've had any sort of relationship with their mom and they're close to their mom, where that motherly opinion ends up carrying so much weight versus the opinion of your spouse. I'm sure Brad, in his years of dealing with this, has had many of guys come in where like the mother interferes, that motherly interference, or to the point of the book where it's like you have like this almost incestual relationship, or this high need for praise or acceptance from your mom. I don't think I've ever had that. I just think it's like, I trusted my mother probably more than I trusted my partners. So whatever that means about me being crazy and broken inside.
I don't know if I misread it or if I projected this onto the narrative or whatever, but I thought what he was saying about monogamous to your mom is that we sometimes like unconsciously sabotage relationships just so that we can, let me ruin this. So my first love, my true love is my mom, or my need for that, the unmet need for that, the archetypal, perfect love or whatever. Let me just ruin everything out here so that I can stay monogamous to mom. I think I see that pattern too, where guys, go through relationships that are up and down, or that are, they're on and off again, or that they continue to fail. It may be that who they're really trying to stay true to is their mom.
Yeah. And I think there's also too, again, if you look at the flip side of that, if you didn't get that, then it's like, then are you spending like a proportionate amount of time trying to find that somewhere, trying to get that from somebody? If you've never had that maternal, connection with your mom, like a guy like me, are you like, is that what you're trying to find? And I think he talks about it in the book. It's like, that's why you end up picking a spouse. Look at that, man. I'm so, ugh. No more Mr. Nice Guy. It's my wife. I don't care. I'm not even answering your question right now because I'm doing a podcast. No more Mr. Nice Guy. She's going to come home. She's going to be like, you couldn't answer my text. Like, really? I'm like, yeah. Because I had a dysfunctional relationship with my mom, and I'm not going to put that on us. So, no, you stop. I got to go, guys. She's calling. I got to go. She needs to know.
What is wrong with you?
Nipples for the baby. No, but he talks about that, right? So it's like you're trying to find that in your spouse, which is like why a lot of people end up with people, and he talks about in the book, you end up with somebody like your mom. You know what I mean? Like you end up taking somebody who's emotionally unavailable because, you know, she was unavailable to you. So, I mean, I get that part of it. You know, you have to talk to my brother. He's the mama's boy in our family. So,
yeah. So you're always trying to win approval. Like if I just keep giving, if I just give more and I'm more accommodating and giving, then, you know, maybe eventually I'll get seen and loved and appreciated as the person I really am. So the integrated man, I mean, how do we fix this stuff? You know, this guy has all this messy stuff going on. How does he fix it? What is the solution to being a nice guy? And if we can all relate to this stuff, what have you done? What helps men no longer be this and kind of grow up?
Self-awareness.
Yeah. Okay. So
self-awareness. I mean, you know, this is all, if you've got your head up your ass and you're, you know, and you know, as a guy, I think we're all predispositioned to immediately go to like the defense on this. I'm not this way. I'm adjusted. I don't have these issues. But I think if you actually look in the mirror and, you know, and I think for a lot of guys, when you're going through your marriage and you're going through your day to day, there isn't this level of friction. I mean, it's probably a level of like codependency, and it's not like a straight, like, you know, almost a fire extinguisher moment where you've got to fix this relationship today. You know, a lot of people are just going through the motions day after day. He dumps the dishwasher and then he gets mad because she doesn't put out, and they have that argument, and that goes on for the next 15 years or 10 years. And eventually what happens is, you know, John at the office whispers sweet nothings to your wife, and all of a sudden she feels warm and fuzzy because somebody else is talking to her the way you're not. And all of a sudden now you're in, you know, to Kevin's point, fight or flight of, oh my God, I got to save my marriage. And now you're pouring it on extra thick. And guess what she doesn't want? She doesn't want your love. She doesn't want like, oh, baby, let's go out on a date tonight. Let me love you. Let me hold your hand. Let's sit on the couch. I'm not going to play the Xbox tonight. I'm going to do all these things that you've asked me to do for the last 10 years of our marriage. And I'm going to pour it all into you today. But she's already talking to, you know, John at the office, who tells her that she's beautiful and makes her feel special. And you're late. You're too late. And now you have to really do the work on yourself. You have to become the best version of yourself, which every fucking guy hears. And they're like, you know, what does that mean? The best version of myself. I am the best version of myself until you actually do the work.
I know you got to bleep. I got to bleep stuff, man, but I don't know how you're going to bleep this one because it's going to be like my shirt. I'm getting this made. This is going to be my brand. I live by it, man. Hard lifts equal hard dicks, man. And that is how you get better. I'm dead ass serious, man. You get your ass to the gym and you start producing more testosterone. You start lifting. You start doing hypertrophic training. You don't go put on your fucking jogging pants and go for a little jog around the run, boys. I'll take the dog for a walk. No, man. You go and you lift heavy shit. You go look, quite literally, to use Steve's favorite non sequitur, quite literally, go see the alpha dudes doing alpha shit. And, you know, so, like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean that it's like tongue in cheek. Because you're going to go in there, and especially if you've never gone and lifted a weight in your life, you're going to go in there. And I'm not like Mr. Six-pack abs or anything, because I love to eat nachos and pizza and, you know what I mean, do what I want and shit. But I go and lift weights because I don't want a six-pack here in my belly. I need one up here. You know what I mean? It keeps me sharp. It keeps me focused. It starts my day off right. but it produces more testosterone. It produces more endorphins. You know, you get something out of it. You know what I mean? And again, this is not, don't go to fucking CrossFit. Don't go to Orange Theory. Okay.
CrossFit's okay. Kevin.
No, listen, this is, but because I put that back to the theory of we're talking about, like, I'm sorry, but like, there is a tried and true tested way of working out. There's an old school man lifting heavy shit. What was his name? Was it Teddy Atlas or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah.
Regardless, yeah.
I think he was the lead singer of that one. Go on. Horrible joke.
Of Nickelback.
Yes, Nickelback.
But I think there's just something to be said for going in and lifting weights in an old school way and not getting into all the, you know, the jazzercise and fucking, because at the end of the day, you're not going to go in there and listen. For the most part, okay, I'm saying the most. I'm not saying women don't go in and deadlift and squat and bench press. I've seen some badass stacked up ladies in there like getting at it, but generally speaking, that's going to be a more male dominated environment. You don't want to go into CrossFit and get your ass kicked by Sally, who can do 300 kipping pull-ups, fake pull-up, by the way, not our actual real strict full pull-up. Let's just get that.
If she can do 300 kipping pull-ups, we're going to give her the credit for them.
No, but I'm just, you know, what I just mean to say is that you're surrounded by this stuff, by the grunting. Don't go to Planet Fitness. Go somewhere that allows you to get that, you know, get that in there, to throw weights down, you know, that promotes that environment for you.
What was that again?
I love it, man. You know what I mean? Like my gym, I bet I can drop weights. I can, you know what I mean? Not being a jerk or anything like that, but look, don't wait till the divorce is there. Don't wait for it till it's too late, because this is what every guy does, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to get in shape. No, oh man, no. Like, to me, I feel like exercise and gym and weightlifting, it changed my life because it gave me measurable goals. You know what I mean? At first, it was like the same. Oh, I want to drop 20 pounds or whatever. You know what I mean? I want to do this. I want to do that. But it taught me how to set goals. It gave me 90 days and I'm going to finish this program. And I finished that program. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do another program. I want to do another program. Now I'm like anybody else. I fall off and fall down. But the point is like, it's a part of my life. And I think at the very base, if I lost everything tomorrow, if I didn't have $1 to my name, if my wife left me and took my kids, I could still go out and knock out 50 pull-ups. I could still go out and knock out how many ever pull-ups. I'm not giving how many I could do because it's not that many. But yeah, but I could still go out there at the very least and still train my body and still get that stress relief, man, and get that and be in the moment, because they're going to tell you, hey, go sit down and meditate if you can. Go take 10 minutes. Man, meditating, because my brain is always going 100 miles an hour, is like the hardest thing in the world, to sit down and train your mind to just be quiet when you are maxing out at failure. Or I think jiu-jitsu is another fantastic way. And I think the reason like guys like Jocko Willink and Tim Ferriss and all these like sort of thought leaders in the industry about human optimization choose jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. One, it's like the chess of martial arts. And two, there is nothing that you are nowhere else. If somebody's got you in an armbar, if somebody has got you in a triangle choke, there is no place that you're not thinking about your bills. You're not thinking about what your wife's making for dinner. You're not thinking about anything but how do I get out of this situation? Put yourself into actual fight or flight situations and win that shit. And when you start your day off every single day, winning something, getting that thing done and getting that feeling, man, there is no better way, I think, than to start this journey by optimizing your life through exercise, man. There's a reason why when you go to a doctor,
you can sign up for his course in the link below.
Yeah, guys, go ahead.
You're so right, man. He actually talks about that in the book, Reclaiming Your Masculinity. Get strong. You know, he's like, literally get strong, get your balls back and do some male shit. You
Yeah, I think you got to do some guy stuff. You got to go, shoot some guns, lift some weights, do some shit with the guys. And, it's, I love Kevin. Kevin's always the enthusiast for the gym. I can't even nod my head because he busts my balls about it every day. I need to, we all need to. I think it makes a bigger difference than we realize, but I think, I want to pull it back a little bit, Kevin, because I think, I almost want Brad's response in this, because as somebody who's coming into you with their, separated, and you've read this book, you've read all those books behind you, you're giving this advice where guys have to like man up a little bit, and that term, like, it's been almost proven where you're not even able to say that to kids anymore, because, tell your kid to man up. Well, now he isn't going to cry. He isn't going to be able to do these things. But we're seeing a bunch of guys that need to man up, quite literally need to man up because they're not doing man shit.
Listen, go to Robert Frank's Instagram and just like Robert Frank and listen to everything he says. He's like this extreme. I sent you the one link. He's like this crazy, like roided out dude, and he's absolutely ridiculous. Like every vein in his entire body is like bulging, and it's always like, oh, you're being a beta male if you don't go in and bench press 350 pounds, and blah blah blah. Like he's like, well, way over the top thing of that. But I can't stress that one, and again, because for me it was a catalyst for everything, for me starting my business, man, for me fixing the relationship with my wife. It was something actionable, man. Not everybody, Steve, can go and just go like, hey, man, like, because he talks about it too. Like, you want to start a business, you want to, whatever it is, like the things these big changes that you want to go and make in your life, man. Like, it's hard for some guy to like quit a job and go start the thing of his dreams. Like, I'm just saying as an actionable, easy first step, because look, man,
well, and that's why I was asking Brad. Like, Brad, you're what are you telling a guy to go do?
All of these things. I mean, I probably, I guess I'm not such a purist when it comes to, weight training versus other things. I think if you're doing anything, you're better off.
You're right.
Most guys aren't doing anything. Right. Most guys don't have any physical activity, just walking to the refrigerator, 12-ounce curls or whatever. So I think if you're being physical, I like what you said there, Kevin, about being in the moment. When you're doing something like that, you're nowhere else. And so to be present, if you're thinking about this nice guy, all these things he's doing, he's in the past. Oh, I've got to redeem myself. I did this bad thing and now I've got to fix it. Or, oh, if I do this sometime in the future, she's going to give me some, or whatever. You're not living in the present. And I love any of those types of stimulation that keep you in the present. That's good. I'm not presently going to the gym, but I've done that plenty in my past. And when I felt the best, it's when I was lifting hard things. I love the discipline of it. You talk about conquering something in the morning, and whenever you do that, Ed Milet talks about you got to keep promises to yourself. And there's nothing like getting on a program, some regimen where I've set out to do this thing and I did it today. You just got to be a badass in your own way. That's what she wants. She doesn't want you to be nice and worship her and kiss her feet. She's not going to respect that. What she respects is that you have a life and that you're doing things that make you feel alive, and you're looking after your own health and your soul and your mind, and you're learning and growing, and you're kind of doing some fun things, and you have things going on. That's what makes you attractive, not just being this kind of servant person who's worshiping the ground she walks on. I don't know anyone who really likes that very much at all.
I'll tell you, man, like, because both you guys know, like, my last year of my life has been crazy hectic. I knew before I read the book. Steve mentioned the book to me, and I read it, and I was like, the first thing I texted him after like 2 chapters, I was like, are you and Brad like having an intervention for me or something like this? Like, I feel personally attacked with this book, man. You know what I mean? Like, I feel personally under attack with this book. I think inherently there was like, I never knew what a covert contract was, but I'm definitely guilty of it. But I'll tell you, man, like the one thing, like I said, like me and my wife, we recently had a baby boy. We both got sober. She was like, well, she was, man, I mean, I don't want to get into the whole thing, but like our life, we really started finally like growing together, like trying to like aligning our values and our goals and all these things together. And one of the things that I noticed was like, as our love life got better, like I also noticed that, and we got honest with each other. We started like telling each other, the little skeletons in the closet, the little secrets, little things that build up between a marriage that cause a divorce over time. Like we broke that dam open, and I mean, guys that are listening to this, or if you're watching on video, like, listen, man, you don't end up with like fucking throat tattoos and knuckle tattoos because you're batting 1,000 your entire life. So I'm a little bit of an emotional basket case at times. It was not. It was not an easy road, but as we sort of got to these better places, I also did notice like a lot more attraction from women. Like I'm going, well, you know what I mean, having a conversation. I'm like, now I'm not being the flirty one. Now they're flirting with me. You know what I mean? Because our relationship's better, because our love life got better, because we started fixing all these things. Like you could just really start to see the external effects that were happening like all around me from like this from a relationship standpoint. And it's like when I was walking around like all like whatever, feeling whoever I was being, even this guy like 10 years ago, that all my friends are around, these guys that I'm with driving all boats and stuff. They got all these like girls around them. Constantly, they didn't have to do anything. Why? Because they were getting laid all the time, man. You know what I mean? And it just like there's this. I don't know if it's biological or what it is that you put off into the world that comes out. Because it's not like I don't go out and hit on chicks to try to pick up later or anything like that. But I definitely did notice more. But I think it's also the beard too. My wife was like,
that gray in the beard.
Maybe my wife talked me into it. She's like, I didn't shave for a couple of. She's like, grow a beard out. I'm like, okay, I'll grow a beard. And she really likes it. So maybe it is. Maybe it's a gray beard.
They've said it forever that, I mean, the second you're in a relationship, all of a sudden women find you attractive. And when you're single, it's because you put off when you're single, you put off a needy energy. I think that, when you're in a happy, healthy relationship,
that
emanates out and women see it. It becomes attractive. It's that, and at the end of the day, it's self-confidence. It's knowing, it's being comfortable in your own skin, accepting who you are. When you're single and you're going through the motions and you're on dating apps and you're, going out date after date after date, trying to find the next human being to be in your life, you put off a thirsty energy, a needy energy. And I think the only way to get around that is, a mix of like what Kevin said and, like going to the gym, becoming real clear about who you are, what your goals are, to yourself, holding up promises to yourself. If anything, I could go back and tell myself 20 years ago is keep the promises to yourself. I know I've been a bigger guy. I have told myself for the last 10 years of my life, I want to lose weight and I want to get down to a better weight. And up until this year, I've literally done, the work to get there, or I've taken the steps in the right direction to start losing weight, because you make these promises or you make these like goals for yourself and then you do nothing to set them, to achieve them. My favorite saying to anything is burn the boats. You've got to burn the boats. You got to drop all the shit that got you here. And you really got to focus on what you have to do to become the best aligned version of yourself.
That's a good word, aligned. And that's what I hear Kevin talking about. When you become a very attractive person, I mean, in business and with friendships and in whatever way, if you're doing what you should do. One of my friends who's a therapist, a female friend of mine, on her Instagram the other day, she said, what is a strong man? What makes a strong man? And my answer was, you know what to do and then you do it. And what Kevin, what you're talking about, even just the exercise part, you got your relationship in check, you started being honest, you started cleaning things up in your life, everything improves, just exponential kind of things just flow in a better way because you're more aligned. I like that, Steve.
Yeah. You gotta, man, it's like, I hate to bring up that, and sometimes like I think like this is just like general knowledge, but it's like the law of attraction or like the rules of attraction, and these are the things that like we're talking about, like that are actually like legitimately happening. Like I'm getting honest with my wife, I'm getting honest with myself, I'm cutting out the bad shit in my life. Like this is not some type of like metaphysical like magic here that's happening. You know what I mean? This is real, like you can connect these dots. It's measurable. And so when you start to look at things in that manner, and you start really considering that what you're putting out into the world is like something that you're truly getting this shit back. Like there's a book, and people, you can really like scoff at it, and I think popular culture has kind of made fun of it a little bit, but the book The Secret, and it's like I lend a lot of credit to that book. I really do. I mean, you can look at it in its most literal form or something and be like, write down, I want a bicycle, and then your grandpa gets you one for Christmas. You're like, it's the rules of attraction, the mystical rules of attraction. There's like a lot of like hokey like marketing shit behind that they did with that, but I mean, it really is the secret to life. It truly is. If you put that out in the universe, if you write down, if you live life with intention, and you really truly put out there what it is that you want, like one way or another, you will get it back. And if you're sitting around, and it works the inverse way as well. If you're sitting around going like, oh, well, life never gives me, it's always giving me the lemons, and I'm
having a pity party.
Oh, it says, yeah, gee whiz. And like that's exactly what you're gonna get if you tell the world that you're gonna make $100 million, or you know what I mean. Like, and Jack Canfield says it best. I think he, in his book, he was like talking about that he wrote it down, they wanted to sell 1 million books, and they sold like 950,000, and he's like, hey, that's failure I can live with.
Sure.
Yeah. So you got to put it out.
And I think it's, guys, again, I think all of this comes back to action. You've got to take some level of action. You've got to look in the mirror. You've got to be able to, be self-aware of what what are you doing to make this better and or worse. I know there's an author who wrote a book of like, you have to take the blame for everything in your life, good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, you're responsible for your life, not anybody else. So when you start placing your happiness or your level of happiness on somebody else, you're only going to set yourself up for failure. And when, these covert contracts and these sexless relationships, the only person you can start to blame is yourself. Because, while you can't change somebody else, you can change yourself. And at a certain point, you're not going to let yourself be in a sexless relationship, because you're going to be so fucking powerful in your own body and your own spirit and your own mind that you're not going to be content to stay in a relationship that you're not getting your needs fulfilled.
Hey, real quick. So I know, like, I think we're coming in at 2 hours. I don't know how long these things go, but
it's 3 hours. It's a marathon podcast.
This obviously is not my format. This is the Alpha Quorum show. I had to look that word up, by the way. Quorum. And I don't. You could tell me after the show, like, why the quorum, because I didn't quite understand it. But I mean, so I think Steve's takeaway from the book. And one thing that we talked about, and he was like, so they give you the roadmap for why, but they don't really give you like a lot of, suggestions as to how to go about, steps to go about fixing this stuff. And like I said, I feel like I started a little further down the journey in the more how to get this stuff fixed. And then I went back to the why, and it kind of like wrapped some things up and was able to connect to put some threads to some things for me, which I thought was really cool. Because I'm always like the why guy. I want to know why. So I mean,
yes,
Brad, I think Steve does some marketing for some of my companies, a couple of my companies now. I'm always like, Steve, why are we doing? So to that point, like Brad, what would you think about us giving some suggestions for some companion books? And I would like to get your take on like what do you think of some like more actionable books that can help guys with like, all right, now I know why I'm a sad sack of shit. How do I fix it? What are some books that tell you that?
One of my favorite books, and this guy gets a lot of heat, but Jack Donovan, The Way of Men, that's one of my favorite ones. He talks about a lot of anthropology stuff and primates, and he kind of talks about the alpha.
It's called the way of the superior man, or the way of
the way of men.
Just the way of the man. Okay.
Men, yeah.
I've never read that.
The Way of Men. It's really good. It's a pretty short book, like this one as well. That's one of my favorites. Is also The Way of the Superior Man, David Data. Talks a lot about, I mean, one of the titles in one of the chapters in that book is, she wants to see the killer in you. She doesn't want you to kill people, but she wants to see that kind of strength. It's pretty cool. The Way of the Superior Man.
Yeah. I think that they do. I think they want to see that, most women don't want you to be a killer, but if you killed somebody, they'd help you bury the body.
Well, so what are you, Steve? What are some of yours? What are your favorite books? How do you apply?
I'm so much more of a podcast guy. So I've read all these books back when I was going through my shit. This has been my book. This is like my, this is where you start. I think, he doesn't give great action items. Where I ended up finding a lot of like help was in like guys like Andy Frisella and, some of those guys where it's, I don't want to say it's almost toxic, but I do feel like you need such a like snapping your relationship or in yourself to like pull yourself out of your own shit. And the only way you can do that is real self-awareness. I feel like I've been, one of the things that I've been able to do in my own life is to step away and at least identify, okay, here are these idiotic, stupid traits of myself that I can't hold, that I can't stand about myself. These are what I need to change. And when you listen to a guy like Andy Frisella, who is almost to the point of, I would say, toxic, but I think you need some.
I thought you were going to say "Sell or Be Sold" by Grant Cardone.
I do like that. I do. I like that.
Uncle G, come on.
I like that.
What's his other one? Like
10X Rule. 10X Rule.
It is. 10X Rules is awesome, man. Like Grant Cardone is good. Yeah.
How about you, Kevin? What do you got for
companion? Oh man,
he's like gonna bust on some philosophical book from 1412.
Aristotle.
From from Plato. I got no, I meant Play-Doh, like the rolling Play-Doh.
Didn't you and I talked about that the other day?
Rolling Play-Doh snakes. All right, yeah, so I got a whole laundry list, man, of some of these books because until like I read this book and I hate I'm not like whatever, I don't have like a fucking affiliate link for this book or anything like that, but it really tied everything else that I read together really nicely. Like it gave me a lot of introspection. I'm like, no shit, like this is some of the stuff that I do. But these books I feel like I give some great answers. One, Brad, you and I talked about it. The obstacle is the way.
Yeah, Ryan Holiday.
Kennedy, right?
Ryan Holiday, I think.
Ryan Holiday. Geez, that was Ryan Kennedy and Ryan Holiday. Ryan Holiday. Obstacle is the way. Just because that book in particular like helps you deal with like like when things like get in the way, like how do you get around like these obstacles? And again, like I hate like summing this up like this, but it's like some fight or flight shit, because I think whether it be in your relationships, in your business, in your friendships, and like we get into these moments where you're just, especially if you are a nice guy or a recovering nice guy, where you're just sort of like, oh, like how do I deal with this, the nervousness, the anxiety, like all this shit, because this book is what they kind of like, this starts at childhood with the toxic shame and how you process things and the no more Mr. Nice Guy symptoms I believe, infect not just your relationships, they infect everything that you do.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff like in Holiday's book about the obstacles of way, like gives you some actual like maybe some more like philosophical things about like where you encounter things in your life, and instead of going like, oh, it's all my fault, manifest destiny, mom never fucking loved me, I'm born to fucking fail, I knew this was gonna happen. Like it kind of gives you a little bit better context to sort of like deal with those moments, and that can be your business relationship. Another one, Aubrey Marcus, which is Joe Rogan's business partner, and on it wrote a book called Own the Day, Own Your Life. It's a phenomenal book that actually gives you like, hey man, like, you know, what are you doing? How are you optimizing your day? Like, what are you doing in your day-to-day shit that you should be doing, like making your life better, from diet to exercise to relationships to, I mean, dude talks about like wrestling naked with his girlfriend. I mean, man, there's nothing, you know what I mean? Nothing wrong with that, especially if she's smaller, because you can whoop her ass, put her in a sleeper hold, DDT, boom. Yeah. Drop it. I just thought that was a really funny thing, like wrestle naked. I'm like, that's a weird one. Own the Day, Own Your Life. I feel like again, going on this theme, David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me is just a phenomenal book, because again, it takes you to that type of place where it puts you in the moment. If you're like thinking like, oh, this is like the end of my life. Guys that are listening to this and might be going through a divorce, like me and my wife have been very, very close, and I thought it was like the end of everything. I mean, this dude is in situations that were just like, oh my God. Podcast, I think the Jocko Willink podcast, Andy Frisella is another one, but Jocko Willink, man, again, like he puts it into context, man. You know, like what these kids and men are doing, these Navy SEALs, and like these battles that they've gone through. Like, you know, I think a lot of times when I feel like my world's coming to an end, it's like, shit, man, I could be like in a foxhole, like suffering from like, you know, having German bombs blowing up all around me in the turn of the century. Like that's real, actual, you know, shit. And my favorite one, I'm gonna wrap it up with my favorite book is The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. If you're just like trying to figure out, you know, he says it all the time, and they say it in the book too, and he stole it from Canfield, but he says if you oh God, what does he say? You if you put in what you always, if you give, then you always get what you always got. I'm fucking this saying up. If you do what you've always done, you get what you always got. Yeah.
Say it again. Start it again.
It's if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you always got, or something like that. But he says it in the book, Jack Canfield, The Success Principles. He talks everything from relationships to business. Jack Canfield wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. I mean, it's kind of like a cornball book, but I mean, at the same point in time, it's sold, I don't know, tens of millions of copies for a reason. And The Success Principle, which is like came out afterward, is man, I've read that book like 5 or 6 times. I would say
I just ordered it. Ordered it. Yeah.
Man, it's a phenomenal book, and it's kind of like old school, you know what I mean? Like it was like written like I think right around the same time as. So like some of the things like when he says in the one book, he's like, you know, some guys have a pager so their wife can so their wife can get a hold of them while they're gone. Like, but yeah, I don't know. When me and Steve talked about the book, he says there's only one criticism was that there was not enough actionable steps in the book, like what you should do. But in today's day and age, there are books, podcasts. Pretty soon my course will be available for how much? $9.97 are we going to sell it for?
It'll be $97, or you can get on the monthly payment plan. You can join his tribe for only $19 a month. Or I do love, you know, Kevin just said that line, and I've had this as like, I heard this a while ago, and it just is like a term that's resonated with me so much, and it's kind of like became my new mantra for like life. And even on my Instagram, it's like, you put that little like bio link or bio thing about like who you are. And mine is you either go after the life you want or you settle for the life you get. Yeah. And, you know, I'm not a pilgrim. I'm not settling for shit.
That's what's up. That's a good one.
It's everything, you know, you get one spin around this earth, and you can either spend it being happy and in a life you're happy to be in, or you can be miserable and live in your dog shit. And I just don't want to do that.
That's why you guys are successful. That's why I invited you to the show. I'm sure we're going to have you back. Dude, if you're ever back in town, Kevin, we'll have to block out 2 hours to have you guys come down here and let's do one live and in person here, man. We appreciate you both joining us here today. I'm going to get all your links and everything and link it in the show notes to how to get a hold of you if they want to get join your course. And
yeah, it's gonna be a hard dicks equals harddicks.com.
Hey, thanks, you guys. Really appreciate it, man. Have a good night. Take care of yourselves. See you later.
Thanks, Brad. Later, brother.
Bye-bye.
Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.